Hello, and welcome back to the War of Ideas podcast. Today, I will be talking about free speech. I will be telling you about how little it actually matters in this day and age. Kind of like how the Second Amendment is a little bit outdated, considering it was written back in the 1700s. The First Amendment has its flaws that time has exposed as well. There's exceptions to the free speech rule. You can't knowingly lie about other people and spread false information. No libel, no slander. And you can't even commit perjury. Where's my free speech to commit perjury? You can't shout that there's a fire in a movie theater. You can't yell out, "He's got a gun," at the top of your lungs without getting punished for it. I mean, where's the fun in getting punished for the things I say? It's almost as if there's speech that is intolerable and unable to be defended. It's almost as if freedom of speech does not apply to every possible thing you can think of. But that's enough for those flaws, the flaws that existed in the 1700s and still do today. I'm going to be talking about the flaws that exist today that did not exist in the 1700s, that the Founding Fathers did not perceive to happen in the future. That's right, I'm going to talk about Twitter and the other usual suspects, Facebook, Google. Everyone seems to be okay with the rules of no libel, slander, perjury, things of that nature. Everyone seems to have a good grasp on that and understands that. But what a lot of people are encountering today is something we really have to think about as a society and decide what we're going to do about it. You are allowed to speak what's on your mind. You can be racist. You can tell everyone you hate Jews when you're out in the street, and you won't get sent to jail. There's your freedom of speech. But how much of your speech is actually done outside in a public setting? Surely you see where I'm going with this? Free speech has been privatized. Facebook and Twitter and every other place on the internet where you type stuff and talk with other people, those are not public platforms. If they really wanted to, Twitter could ban any account they wanted for no reason whatsoever. Yet they are the arbiters of speech. People say more on Facebook and Twitter than they talk to other people in real life. Free speech doesn't apply to Facebook, Twitter, a blog that you wrote. Free speech does not apply to the people talking on a stage at an event hosted by, for example, a news media company or a charity organization. You cannot just get up on the stage and say whatever you want. Sure, you still won't go to jail, but if Twitter kicks you off their platform, and Facebook kicks you off their platform, and nobody lets you speak on stage because you're not famous or everybody hates you, the only free speech you have is to shout into the air at the birds. And only during the daytime, too, because when people are sleeping and you're shouting, someone's probably going to call the cops on you. Almost every place where people actually listen, read, or speak to each other, we are conversing under the terms and conditions of a private corporation. free speech has been privatized. And whether or not that's a good thing is an argument you can make, but no matter whether you think that's a good thing, you need to accept the fact that private companies have full control of who can and cannot be heard. And we've got people like Marco Rubio, who I personally believe wants the world to be a better place. He thinks we should just have more competition, and that's the solution for Facebook and Twitter blocking right-wing viewpoints, or someone else saying they block left-wing viewpoints. Just have more competition and people will flock to the one where they don't block it. Except, first off, those new competitors competing with Facebook and Twitter, those will also be private companies. And that means those companies will still control speech as well and can kick anyone they want off as well. And secondly, that competition just isn't going to happen. We may very well see Facebook go the way of MySpace and Twitter get replaced by some other social media website. I'm not saying that's impossible. I think it will likely happen eventually. But when I say that more competition is not going to happen, I mean more competition all at the same time, where there's choices to make for people, where people feel like their choice of what platform to use actually makes a difference in the minds of the CEOs and the developers of those social media companies, where they actually fear that people will move to another platform if they don't step up their game. That will not happen. If Facebook goes down, it's going to happen because people don't think it's cool anymore, not because people move to another platform that has more free speech. People move from MySpace to Facebook because it was cool, not because they felt that they had more freedom to write what they want on Facebook. When we talk about social media, you have to realize that all the competitors in this sphere sort of collapse into a last man standing sort of deal. And the last one standing obliterates everything in its path. And that's not only because the companies try to snuff out the competition themselves, which they definitely do for more profit, but the consumer also only wants to be bothered with one app or one website that works the best, and more importantly, the one that everyone else is using. People don't want half their friends on Facebook and half on MySpace, because that'd be annoying to have to upkeep both profiles and check both web pages and both apps and see what people are saying on both of them. The reason Twitter is able to thrive even with Facebook around is because Twitter has a lot of differences to Facebook. MySpace doesn't have enough differences, so there's no reason to use both. There is a reason to use both Facebook and Twitter. They've both carved out niches separate from one another. And more companies seem to be doing a good job at carving out those niches where they can have their piece of the pie and not mess with any of the big companies and not try to make their product too much like those guys. So when it comes to social media platforms, all things point to monopolies that these companies have on their product. So even if Twitter does get replaced by a platform called Wheatsies, there will be no one on Twitter when Wheatsies becomes popular. There will not be a 50-50 split. There won't even be an 80-20 split. The transition happens very fast. And once again, it doesn't even matter because Wheatsies and Twitter will both be private platforms and they can ban whoever they want. The idea Marco Rubio is going with is that if Twitter is too harsh on banning what people deem to be acceptable, everyone will go flock to Wheatsies, where they don't ban people. Except that's not why people go to Wheatsies. They'll go because it has a more user-friendly interface. And then other people will go because their friend went there and they want to talk to their friend, and then everyone else will go because everyone sees the transition happening before their eyes, and Wheatsies will be the cool new thing. Now, you might say, but hey, what about the competition between Uber and Lyft? That's a perfect example of two companies who are neck and neck with each other and probably keep prices lower than if there was only one company that dominated the market. Well, you're right, that's a good thing to see, except it's a completely different market where the company you choose doesn't matter to your friends. They don't care which company you get a car ride from because they're not interested in where you go. So they don't have to install Lyft on their phone if you use Lyft. But we can't have that nice Uber and Lyft model with social media platforms because, once again, people want to be able to read and listen and speak all on the same platform as their friends. They don't want two apps that do the exact same thing. But for Uber and Lyft, you can use Uber, your best friend can use Lyft, and neither of you will care because you don't post about your life on the Lyft app. And Uber and Lyft is just two companies. That's hardly what I consider an adequate amount of competition between companies. It's better than a monopoly, but that's about it. And even if we did have tons of competition, it's time that people admit something they already know. That there are some services and some products out there that do not mesh well with privatization and are better left to a government-owned entity that is accountable by the people. An example of these services or products are prisons, healthcare, speech, education, fire department, police department, and a lot more. There are some services that need to be mandatory for every citizen to have, whether they have the money to get it or not. So you see the problem with Facebook and Twitter being the gatekeepers of free speech. No amount of votes or signatures on a piece of paper by the American people or by people all over the world can kick Mark Zuckerberg out of the CEO seat. At least legally, they can. What are you going to do about it? He's not held accountable by anyone. And Republicans lately have been experiencing this problem of free speech firsthand. And it should be ironic to them because usually Republicans want a smaller government and want the privatization of most things. You've got tons of people complaining Twitter and Google, the Google search results are biased against right-wingers. And you've got other people saying they're biased against left-wingers and they're shadow banning people on Twitter so no one can see your posts. And it's unfair and somebody should do something. It's like, well, They can do whatever they want, really. You know the common response of some Republicans to people who work minimum wage and complain that they're not being paid a living wage? Those Republicans would tell them, well, just go learn a skill and get a different job. Just get a job that pays more. Duh. Well, if Twitter and Google are so biased against you, just go use a different platform. In fact, just go make your own. It's so easy, right? Just go make your own social media platform. Oh, you don't like the way Verizon and AT&T overcharge you for internet in your area? Just go put your own fiber optic cables underground and make your own internet. So easy. Just go move to Texas and get a different company's internet instead. Oh wait, maybe now you're realizing that for some products and services, there really is no alternative to what you're using now. You made your bed, now you can sleep in it. So you might want to think about the position of reducing the size of government and privatizing more and more products and services. You want government to stay out of your affairs? Then don't come crying to the government that Twitter and Google are banning people with your point of view. Don't come crying to the government that private companies can do whatever they want and be biased against anyone they want. You might be thinking, it's almost as if we need rules and regulations. And I have a great example of just how difficult it is to start your own social media platform or any internet platform. There is a competitor to Twitter that more than 3 people in the world actually know about. It's called Gab. I have never been on the website, but it's been in the news recently, and I won't get into that or why it's been in the news. But Gab is the alt-right answer to Twitter scrubbing alt-right points of view off their website. Forgive me if I'm putting that too simply, but basically they're a lot more lenient in the speech that they allow on their website. So there's people that post there, and wow, there you go. You proved me wrong. Congratulations. You now have competition. These are two, even though none of you have ever heard of Gab, some people have. More than 100 people in the world have heard of it. So hey, I'll throw you a bone and say that's your competition to Twitter. But wait, something happened recently. Uh-oh. Gab has taken some heat for a recent event. On Gab's website, as of late October 2018, all they have is a letter from the CEO. You cannot get on the website right now. And the CEO says, Gab has been no-platformed by essential internet infrastructure providers at every level. We are the most censored, smeared, and no-platformed startup in history. What's that? That free speech competition to Twitter is now unusable for the foreseeable future because of essential internet infrastructure providers. If you're not a big tech fan, I'll try to explain it. In order for you to keep your website up and running, you need services from other privatized companies. And those privatized companies, because they're private, they can choose not to provide you with their service. And that is what happened to Gab. The private companies that provided Gab with the infrastructure services that they needed to keep their website up and running decided they didn't want to keep Gab up and running anymore. And they are perfectly within their right to do that. The company that was hosting Gab's website was GoDaddy. They terminated their relationship with Gab, so users could no longer use Gab until Gab hired someone else to host their website. On November 4th, Gab was back online because another company that hosts websites agreed to host Gab's website. So if you wanted to make your own website, you'd better hope there's a website hosting company that likes you, that is willing to take your money, because if not, you would have to create your own infrastructure services from the bottom up. If Verizon decided they didn't like what you were doing, you would have to put your own fiber optic cables underground. Or just go move to a different state, go move to a different city where Time Warner or Comcast or any of those great companies, they might accept you. But there's not that many internet service providers out there to choose from, as most of us know. So good luck with that. Or actually, maybe I'm not thinking big enough. There's internet service providers in other countries too that aren't named Verizon and Comcast. Just pull your bootstraps up and go get the money to move to South Korea. So easy. You'll show Verizon not to mess with you. All you gotta do is spend God knows how much money to go move to South Korea and leave all your family and friends behind. Anyway, back to Gab. Let's say Gab does get their internet infrastructure services back. They still have to pay for those services to keep their website up and running. How do they pay for that? Well, the way everybody does, with ads. And I mentioned this before, but I'll just briefly bring it up again. If the only reason your website is able to stay afloat and you're able to make money off of it is from ads, then you are at the mercy of private companies that can bail out on you at any moment they want with no repercussions whatsoever. So you do have to watch what you say, because you don't want to make the Pepsi CEO mad at you. What if he finds out, or she, what if she finds out that you've been letting some deplorable people write deplorable things on your website? You are at the mercy of the people who put ads on your website. And the only thing that you can think of that would make Pepsi not pull their ads from your website is that the backlash of people finding out about it would cause them to not buy Pepsi anymore. If you think that's actually going to make Pepsi think twice about pulling ads from your website, I've got a bridge to sell you. If you think minimum wage employers care at all if people quit at their workplace to go somewhere else, and you think they won't have someone new walk through the door 3 seconds later, I've got a bridge to sell you. If you think we don't need a minimum wage, and that if we didn't have one, McDonald's wouldn't be paying $3 an hour, I've got a bridge to sell you. This competition garbage that people like Marco Rubio spew is so short-sighted that it's just mind-blowing to me. So yes, we are now stuck in a world where everyone has to watch what they say, because despite the First Amendment, 99% of speech is mediated through private entities. And if you want to talk through a public avenue, good luck getting people to listen. Good luck making a difference. Good luck changing people's minds when there's no one to hear you. Speech is important enough to make sure that private companies don't control it. Just like they don't control the fire department and the police department. I think that'll do it for me. I know this is going to be a short one in comparison to previous episodes, but even though I know you're dying for some more of my silky smooth voice, you'll just have to wait for next time. See you then.